right, I see the recording has started. All right, this is the virtual meeting of the CSS Workforce New York Executive Committee, April 1st, 2021. We do have quorum today. Present with us on the board with quorum is Joe Roman, Jim Driscoll, Ernie Hartman, Jack Wheeler, Judy McKinney-Cherry. We do have 3 staff guests, myself, Daniel Porter, Melissa Johnson, and Phyllis Ballier. So that all being said, Jack, the floor is yours to call the meeting.
Okay, thank you, and thanks everyone. Conflict of interest disclosure, as always, if an item comes up that you or your organization has a conflict with, please note that. Meeting minutes of March 4th, 2020, and Mel included them in your attachments. Any questions, concerns, changes? If not, could I get a motion to approve, please?
Ernie moves it. Second.
Okay, motion and second. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. All right, Dan, your deal now.
All right. So director's report, first thing on the agenda is our February 2021 budget. I'm going to blow this up so hopefully everyone can see it without reading it. This will be the first time. I think that's a step too far. All right, so can everyone see that well enough on your screens?
Yep.
Okay. So this is the first time with our budget amendment that we did at our last meeting, the first time we bring it all together. So as you note up here in the corner, this is, see if I can find my thing, is there. It is through February 21st, February of 21, which is 67% of the way through the year. So this is our new budget here in this column. This is really taking account to all of our best accruals, actual expenditures, and obligations were legally allowable. And this, this far column, remember, is the really kind of the internal target that we set for ourselves to make sure that we spend the 80%. So that being said, looking at the personnel line, you can see we're running about 55% at 67% of the way through the year. But we still have, if you see here, we have a lagging indicator on the fringes timing our highest expenditure period for our benefits is in the last 4 to 5 months of a program year. And so this will catch up. So as you can see on this actual fringe or on the salary line, we spent about 59% of budgeted against a 67% of the way through the year. So we're going to be a little behind there, but that's okay. Fringes will be catching up to that. And so we'll bring us in there. So bottom line, total obligated accrued right now about 420. Our internal expenditure goal is around 610. And I think we're on target to hit that. We may come in a little bit under maybe the 595, 590 expenditure range. But the goal will be, if we are coming in under, to make sure we accelerate our expenditures down in the bottom portion. So under the operating expenditures category, we've kind of made all the adjustments. So if you look here kind of as a quick guide as to how we're doing on our different categories, you can see we are either, we're on task for most everything. The eyes immediately go to the numbers being over 100%, which is our postage line. But we reduced our postage line way down to about $300. But then we had some mail we had to send down to Griffin, Florida to get some signatures. And so some of those costs came in and it put us over budget a little bit. We weren't really planning to do all the extra overnight stuff. But realistically, that 10% represents $29. So I don't see that as a material issue. We can certainly amend the budget again if you want, but I don't see a problem. The other 100% number is there on the insurance line. That's really a rounding thing. We spent $15,972 out of $16,000. We have no more insurance bills due, so I'm actually pretty comfortable with that number. Otherwise, within that, other things that are important or of import, outreach. This is a big number on there, and you can see we're underspent. You're going to see a lot of changes in that. We have a regional job fair coming up at the end of April, and we have a very large expenditure of outreach related to that. And we're also going to be doing some outreach to specific programs to try and nudge some folks off the sidelines and back into the workforce. So by the end of April, I expect to have either expended or accrued or obligated through some buys through media about another $11,000 worth of outreach. So if you add that into the 1,800 we've got on there, we're going to be right close to our $12,000 goal. So I'm feeling really comfortable on that. Everything else, there's really nothing terribly exciting to report. I am pretty comfortable overall with operating expenditures. One-stop expenses, we greatly reduced our expenditures across the board last time. And so looking at obligations, which includes our rent and things of that nature, you can see our numbers are looking pretty good for the year. Under program expenditures, remember the goal was always to free money in the top 3 categories, push it down into the 4th category, which is where it's direct participant expenses. So there was some pretty big adjustments in our budget on this line. And this kind of shows you how we're progressing against that. Youth operator training, we're definitely in line with that. NIATEP was the last couple of days. There was youth operator training for NIATEP. And so those expenditures should have been already realized in that number. Work experiences, you can see the youth program has already spent about $152,000. They need to spend about another $50,000 between now and June. They are humping to add that, and operations and oversight is managing that pretty tightly. Contract services, we're in line, and we'll close out the year pretty solid on that. OJTs, we continue to see robust growth on our OJT front. So you can see here our budget is 240. At this point, we've written about 211,000, which is over our internal goal of 192. But remember, on the OJTs, they don't all stick. You do have some people who don't finish their OJT for one reason or another. We also have had, as they change the PPP programs and we close out OJTs, if a person has been funded with the PPP money, which is federal money, then we have to cancel our OJT with them because you can't double dip on the federal funds. So I expect a little bit of attrition, but all in all, we are pushing a lot of money still out the door on OJT and customized. Our supportive services didn't grow from last month because we didn't put a lot of new people into training. I will tell you on that front of note, I have had yesterday afternoon, Brian and I had a pretty, I'm going to use the word robust conversation with our Department of Labor folks. The federal government, the federal DOL, US DOL is pushing computers, internet connectivity, tablets, those electronic devices as an integral supportive service for folks in the newer economy. You can't fully participate in today's economy and workforce in many cases without having access to computers, tablets. I mean, you can't even interview sometimes with companies if you can't do it virtually. However, New York State Department of Labor does not have a policy about how to handle things like that as a supportive service. And so they default to how they require us to manage our computers in the career centers. And so what Department of Labor has defaulted to, for lack of having their own policy on how to use a computer as a supportive service, they've defaulted to a very restrictive system. So one of the things is every laptop, every mouse, every keyboard that we buy, everything electronic, peripheral, anything, we've got to track and inventory over its useful life, which is 3 years, and we've got to explain where it goes. And it's an annual rigmarole. Mel and Patty are the 2 people that lead it on it. So right now, they really want us to do, for a $99 Amazon Fire tablet that the youth program wants to use with one of their kids, we've got to put together a plan, and we got to track it, we got to inventory it, it's crazy, and the kids don't want that. It's just crazy. Anyways, so what we had a very robust conversation on yesterday was, if the feds want us to treat this as a supportive service, then we should treat it as a supportive service. When somebody goes through a welding program and we buy them the gloves and the mask and the protective jacket and steel-toed boots, we might be spending, depending on what they buy, I mean, $600-800 on them. And we're not required to track that or maintain it or inventory it or anything like that, or physically be able to see it periodically. It's a supply. It's a supportive service. And laptops and things of that nature are the steel-toed boots, are the scrubs of the new economy, and they need to have a system to do that. I don't know if we'll win or not. I know that we're not the only one fighting it. I know there's other workforce areas across the state. That was just our own round of that. So if we get that opportunity, I could see the youth program in particular using supportive services to help create some connectivity options with their kids. Mileage reimbursement stays low. Tuition incidentals, we gave a whole bunch more money into this ITA line here with the budget. They've still got quite a lot of growth. So you're going to see Ernie and his ITA review committee will be busy. Bottom line, overall, big picture, the macro, we've got about 70% either spent or obligated, and we are 67% of the way through the year. So I'm actually very comfortable that we're coming in. It doesn't mean that we won't have any issues necessarily on, returning any funds. Dislocated worker is underspent, adult is overspent, youth is way underspent, and they are really humping on that to push that money out. But all in all, big picture, our expenditures are in line for the year. I gave you a lot of information. I apologize for boring you, but questions, comments, concerns?
Anything for Dan?
No, I don't have anything for Dan. I think I don't know if it's budget related, but I do want to talk about some construction ideas, but I don't think it's budget related. So Dan, do you need a motion on any of this or just an update?
Yeah, right. We'll need a motion to accept the expenditure.
I'll make the motion that we accept this report.
I'll second it.
Thank you.
Okay, motion and second. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, Judy, when do you want to bring that up, at the end, or you want to do that now?
It probably is. It is now, just because we just talked about a couple of things. We are. I mean, maybe everybody else has already solved this problem, but we realize that we really have to be moving towards attracting new residents to Schuyler, young residents, and according to a study that's just come out, 46% of all remote workers are going to physically move. You need to know that. So Wayfair, you need to be careful. 46% of the people who are working remote jobs are planning to move. They want to move from where they are. So we're trying to figure out if there's a way for us to kind of go after some of those that are moving, right? The issue is we have all these old houses. We don't have housing stock. We have old houses. And so what came up yesterday, and I said I would bring it up to you, is whether we can use some of our, this is an Ernie question, is there any way we can use some of the retirees that can't, they can't swing a hammer anymore, but they know how to fix up a house, and then identify individuals that are either, in BOCES or that are, how do we get a construction, how do we start mining potential construction workers that are young, that can do some of this work, because all the construction companies are backed up by 6 months to 18 months. And so is there a way for us to solve the fixing the houses up issue in a creative way? That's it. Is there any WIB money that could go towards it? You just mentioned buying, equipment and things. Is there something that Ernie, your group is doing, or we need to do something, because we don't have the workers, but we have aging out folks that can potentially direct.
So if you're asking programmatically how we can do that, and this is off the cuff thinking, so it may not be fully thought out. So
nope,
bear with me on that. Realistically, if our youth program could take young people and young people that were interested in construction or trades related jobs.
Yep.
And we could create a cohort of people, with mentors that could do,
Yep.
their training could be working alongside of what is that group? Like Habitat for Humanity, or
Exactly. That's it.
or the IBEW, could have some retirees that wanted to volunteer through Habitat, and we could do a cohort of. When I say cohort, a cohort could be anywhere from 1 to however many we need. I mean, so
Right.
we could do that and we could do work experiences. Work experiences require an academic component. So
Okay.
as long as the program, wasn't just necessarily teaching them how to swing the hammer, but maybe how to calculate the corners and how to do the math that's required in construction, regardless of where you're at.
Yep.
I could certainly vision us doing that pretty quickly. The key would be finding the training provider, finding the teachers. I mean, we already work with BOCES to try and grab their kids that are graduating high school, and we're trying to steal them. I know Keith is working with folks to do that, and
Okay.
so we can do it. It's really a matter of, do we have a training provider, because they are going to need to be done, that need to be kind of part of a program. But even then, we don't necessarily need somebody who starts up a business solely to do that. We just need somebody that's on record as training provider.
Right.
Whether it's the IBEW local, as part of a mission to create a pipeline, whether it's, BOCES, part of some of their CTE program. I mean, it doesn't need to be crazy that way, but we do need to define it out, and then we can go from there. As far as the kids themselves or the participants themselves, as long as they meet our, for instance, youth eligibility, it's pretty clean, because youth program has, monies for ITAs and training and very generous supportive service possibilities, unless it's a computer or something like that, then it gets a little more tricky. But we have pretty well trodden, and we could certainly put that together. It's really more of a matter of a will to define that and get it done.
Okay.
Now, on the adult and dislocated, so if you wanted to try and grab somebody who was maybe late 20s or early 30s or something along that lines, then their only real option becomes going through an ITA.
Okay.
That one might be a little bit more structured, but again, just on this call, and I'm not picking on Tim or Ernie, but both of their organizations have, they're on the ETPLs, they're on demand occupations. It's just a matter of putting together programs and creating those costs and doing it.
Yeah, I just know that's the issue. The issue is we've got no housing, and we need housing. And so we don't want to do an attraction strategy when there's no place. I mean, it'd be great for you guys, because, right, we get them to look at the area, and they're going to end up buying a house if they can find one, in Chemung or Steuben. But what we want to do is try and fix up what's here. So that's helpful. Actually, what you just shared is I just needed to know whether or not there was anything out there. And what I'm hearing is there might be something out there that could assist.
There's some pieces. I mean, if they are looking at electrical, that's already done. Demand occupation list. We're working with IEBW to recruit for that trade, that trade group. So we do have some connections already established. But if you really look at trying to do something specific to your, geographic area, your county, then you probably will want to, put a little thought and meat and start identifying who's the training provider. What's the workload? What are we doing? And then start kind of piecing them together, and then making sure that, it's either on a demand occupation list or an ETPL if needed. It's not that hard. It's just go through steps.
Well, we haven't had a housing development since 1972. So, we have no place for people to live. So anyway, thank you, Jack, for letting me ask that question. Now I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Just real quick, Nicole Elson and I going to Habitat for Humanity. Had one of our instructors was doing some, house painting stuff with them, and just some very entry level skill sets, and then also taking them over to connecting with Habitat for Humanity and staying on site with them to help supervise the students. It was, entry level, very rudimentary entry level, but just starting with some of the like out of school youth and ASAP in school, high school equivalency students. But hopefully once things get back to some semblance of normal, we can start doing that again.
Okay, so
and
you don't
build
do
on
that
it.
now. Okay, okay. Who was that, Nicole? Oh,
Nicole Elston, yeah, she's our literacy coordinator.
Okay. Cool, thank you.
Tim, historically, how popular has the construction curriculum been at BOCES?
It's been relatively popular with the high school kids. We don't have anything per se with the adults. We have the industrial technology and some specific coursework in the trades, but not where you build a house with the adult program. That was something that the kids were doing over the years. I'm not sure if they're still building houses or if they're doing a little bit more of a remodeling type thing concept.
Do you find that some of the larger home builders in the area come to you and are looking for?
Yeah, we get a lot of people. I'm sure the high school gets it, but we get calls and every day. Kate Bradley got several calls this last week. They're looking for people to operate heavy equipment, CDL, stuff like that, for sure. And welders. I mean, there's 2 or 3 places that I talked to Mike Liederman, our welding instructor. He had 3 different companies call him this last week looking for 40 welders. 2 of them were looking for 40 welders. I think one was still looking for 18 or 20.
Yeah, I don't know, how we're going to solve this. I had a call yesterday from the Harbor Hotel who said, I asked them why they didn't bid on a redevelopment of a pretty nice piece of property. And the answer was, we don't have the staff today to manage the hotel today, before the summer hits. There's no way they can. So it's actually, we're feeling the constraint. And all I could say to him was, you're going to have to raise your salaries. That's it. I don't know what else to tell you. You're going to have to raise your salaries if you're going to try and get people, because everybody's going after that same entry level piece. And so that's part of what, it's really, and according to the call I was on yesterday with the Bloomberg folks, we're in for a really tough time for the next 8 years. Really tough. They're talking about a complete reversal, a complete shifting of the workforce. Complete. Like, it's going to shift not just physically, but the way we manage. And the remote workers are going to realize that they can easily work for somebody else. So it forces the companies to have to reimagine their what they're doing for their people. And it was a very interesting call. It was things I would have never thought about. And that is when you're doing a massive Zoom meeting and everybody has a different background. What happens is, I didn't know this, but you actually get, your brain gets fatigued because of all the different backgrounds. Your brain's trying to process everybody's background. And so now companies are literally saying, you can't have, your own background. You have to have, by policy, a standard background so that it's not fatiguing. It's amazing. I mean, I didn't realize, just it was very interesting information yesterday, but very concerning. So it's even more important now. 45% of the people that were surveyed feel that they do not have the skills today to do the job that they think they're going to have tomorrow, literally. So I think that's really good news for us, but I also think it's really very stressful to think about how we have to rethink our training and how we're going to do this. I don't know. That was a national survey, but the fact that 45% feel they don't have the skills necessary is really great for us. But how do we tell them we have what they need? And do we have what they need? Those are the 2 questions.
Judy, one fight that I've had for years is that we don't get a lot of support or buy-in from high school guidance counselors.
Mm.
They're programmed to push college and don't give a lot of options for people that aren't going to college.
Gotcha.
That's a function of the state reporting.
Yeah.
The only box they can check that's a positive box in that mix is off to college.
Yeah.
I mean, so if you're only positive check boxes off to college, and it's not, in an apprenticeship program, into, secondary training, or vocational skills training,
Right.
you're going to go the path that gets you the most positive. So, and that's
Right.
that's a statewide thing. That's just a function of their reporting. We fought that for, probably at least as long together, Ernie, or different times. I mean, that's 20 years it's been the case, or longer.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. Well, I think that's been, we've talked about this for many years, the fact that we need to make sure that we push the fact that the trades are a honorable and lucrative profession.
Yeah.
But you're right. So I don't know we can't fix that one, but without fixing an educational problem. Anyway, thank you.
All right, so looking at kind of where we're at then, ETPL. So Corning Community College has asked for 7 of their trainings to be added to our eligible training provider list. As I've said this at numerous meetings, as the college is part of the New York State SUNY system, quite honestly, we really can't say no as far as adding them to eligible training provider list. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. That's just a statement of reality. The ones that are not highlighted, the medical coding and billing and the certified paralegal, are both also on our current demand occupation list, which means we would be funding individuals for training that wanted to attend those courses. I will tell you, I'm very happy to see certified paralegal, because to date we've not had any programs on our in our area, even though we've been telling the world that we need these paralegals for some time now. We haven't had any training providers out there. So the fact that the college put that in there will fill a need for us. The ones that are highlighted are not currently on our demand occupation list. And I'm going to kind of do a little more investigating on them and see if we can cover it under one of our existing, or if we need to. I mean, if they're doing these trainings, it's at least worth us exploring if there are demand occupations. But I will say, we're not generally in the position as a workforce board of adding a training or adding an occupation to our list simply because a local training provider wishes to run that training. If it's not a demand occupation for us truly, or if there's not some need, we generally don't put them on our demand occupation list and fund those trainings. So just as a reminder, this is our current demand occupation list. We changed it some time ago where we tied using the ONET codes, and then gave various job titles that are included in those ONET codes. And we did that through the various levels. All right, if you want to copy this, this is new material that I'm just kind of sharing from staff resources. But if you'd like a copy, Mel will more than certainly shoot it out to you. The purpose of why I'm kind of showing this is the college asked for a program, certified network, go back to the request. Oops. So for their certified Cisco network administrator coursework right here, they asked us some time ago to consider adding network administrator to our demand occupation list. They provided some information in terms of data around demand. They referenced the ID6 corridor supply and demand analyst report. They looked at the Department of Labor's long-term employment goals, stating that there's a net gain projected of about 40 jobs. And then on their search, they showed that there was a significant number of openings within 50 miles of Corning right now. So that was kind of their backup. What I shared with them at the time was, if you look at the ONET page, and I'll bounce to that here in just a minute, but we have this category right here already on our demand occupation list. And what I shared with them is because what they were asking shared some overlap from a staffing and job title and duties, because there was overlap between what they're asking in this, that I felt they should just go ahead and have some people submit under this 15-1121 code, and that the review committees could certainly go ahead and approve accordingly. They went back and talked to their college professors who said that they really prefer a different code be added to our demand occupation list, that they felt it was more in line with the actual training itself. So this is what's on there right now. I'm going to kind of bounce out real quick and show you the actual ONET page so you can see where we're at. See if I can find it here. ONET. Where is it? Sorry, I think I closed. I think I did a bad thing. All right. So that is screen 2 now. Yep. Okay. So this is the ONET page right here. So ONET has occupations. So this is the occupation summary report for the 15-1244 that they want us to consider specific to be added. It talks about tasks and technologies, knowledge, skills, abilities. It's standard. ONET does this for every ONET code out there. And some of you probably have seen this more times than you care to admit. It goes down into here to educational requirements, interests, work values, yada, yada, yada. It also has this section right here called related occupations. So as you can see, our computer systems analyst 15-1211 appears under here. All right. And you see this little sunburst right here? That little sunburst means it's considered a bright outlook. It's a demand occupation. It's a good one, if you will, if you're looking at a long-term career projection. All right. So what I shared with them was rather than add this one, because there is acknowledged related occupational, and there, if you read some of the verbiage, there's overlap, to keep that one. Again, they didn't want that. They wanted to come back. So they wanted me to come to look at this. So if you look at computer analysts, see this up here in this corner where, whoops, up here in the corner says bright outlook. If I go back to the one they want, it's not considered a bright outlook on the ONET code. We do have some demand locally. Honestly, 40 jobs over 10 years. I'm not sure that that's huge projected growth, but we do have some need in our area, and we don't have a high density of, computer system administrators out there. Everyone that you talk to will say that. When you want to hire one of those, there's 50 and we sort of share them amongst everybody in our area. This is a really, really long way of saying, bottom line as a board, how do you want me to approach this? From a staff, I certainly am comfortable, otherwise I wouldn't have given them the directive to just use this related code and move them through our ITA. But because they've specifically said, no, they want this other code on here, do you want to add that other code and see if we pick up some additional people that way and see if that does, I don't know, open it up somehow or not? And I'll field lots of questions because I'm sure I threw a lot at you, and I apologize for that.
Dan, how big of a lift is it to add that code?
You just tell me to add that code, and my recommendation, if we do it, would be on the demand occupation list. I'm going to switch screens and go back to the other. See if I can find it here. Hold on. There we go. All we would do, my suggestion would be, is that we, under this tier 3 where it's at, is we would have computer systems analyst 15-1121, and below that we would have network administrators, and then we would tuck it in there. So it's not a big deal. It's just, do you want me to do that or not?
So, personal opinion, and I might be stuck in sort of the civil service world, so I might be looking at the language from that lens, but we're one of the organizations that has a heck of a time trying to find the title or the position that they're asking. So I personally would be supportive of separating it out if that's what the college wants, and that, you know, is not too heavy of a lift, because it is, and again, more of a civil service thing, so it might not matter in this world, but it is, I think, substantially different than an analyst. An administrator is substantially different than an analyst, especially when you're talking Cisco. So my
Yep.
personal opinion would be to add it separately.
If that's a consensus, I'm not opposed at all. I will offer no resistance. It's up to you guys. If you are inclined to go that direction, I guess the motion probably would need to be something along the lines of recommending to add the 15-1244 ONET code under a level 3 training program, effective April 1st. And if you want to do it, it's that way. And then I'll have Phyllis and the staff update all of our materials, and we'll move ahead.
All right, that's what I recommend that we do that. I'm making that motion that you just said.
Second.
Okay, motion second. Any other thoughts or questions? Yeah, Dan, I agree with you that I think it could fit under there, especially if it's called out. But if it's not too big of a deal, I think separating it is probably the best way to go personally. So.
Yep. Excuse me. My only concern in this, truthfully, and I'm supportive, and we'll make sure we'll. I mean, I don't know if we voted or not, or if we're still under discussion, but my only thought on this is we don't generally. It's a slippery slope when every time when a training provider comes to us and says, we've created this new training program, now we want you to put it on the banned occupation list.
Yeah.
That's a slippery slope in that we don't normally operate like that. We usually operate from there's demand, therefore we need a training provider to fulfill that demand, versus the other way, which is we got someone who's doing a training program. Not saying we can't, because we just have to prove demand. That's all.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think we have to be a little careful with it, but this one, to me, personally, again, I think it makes sense.
Yep.
I will just say this. I am a little surprised that we're still doing A+ certifications and training for that, because in 2001, as a IT company, we didn't view that as valuable at all. That was minimum wage. Whereas a Cisco certified network administrator or engineer, and that's the difference. Engineer versus administrator, they are different. Now, maybe they're not now, but they were definitely different back then. So that's all I'm going to say about this, because I'm not in that game anymore. So, but I do find it interesting because we stopped that a long time ago.
Yeah.
So at my other WIB, we stopped providing, and honestly, at CSS, we don't do a lot of the comp TIA plus whatever. For the same reason, Judy, a long time ago it was.
I mean, literally 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Just about 20 years ago, it was considered old then. So
yeah, you're moving towards what were the title and certifications that we're talking about here. The network, the Cisco especially certified, and that's not an easy thing to get sometimes. So, okay. Any other discussions? And I personally am glad to see the certified paralegal. I mean, I know that's between lawyers and paralegals. It's tough in a rural area, so that's a good thing. Okay. If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Okay, so we have a motion to add that. So what I would need is another motion, because I don't think I heard it, which was to add these 7 Corning Community College requests to the eligible training provider list. And again, that really goes to my earlier statement, which is they are a state SUNY institution and we really can't say no anyways. But I do need an official board motion that says to add them to the ETPL.
I'll make the motion. I'll second it, Joe.
Okay. Motion second. Any questions, concerns? All in favor?
Aye.
And I'm going to abstain.
Okay.
Thank you.
Connection at the college. Yep.
Forgot.
There you go. Okay, carried.
So the other thing on here, business services report. This is just an update on the contracts that we've written from July 1. OJTs are first. You can see the variety. Red on here designates that they either didn't complete or were part of the PPP program, and therefore we couldn't double dip on the federal funds. So you see a lot of these red, particularly early in the year. Very few of those were actual failures. They were really, it's more of a function of that PPP overlap and us being very careful to make sure that we're protecting the companies and ourselves from this double dipping going on. So you can see the range of it of things. Currently, let me get down here. We're getting quite a growth still in some of these big users, Ward, Findley's, and Boss and Ward are tied together. You can EL Manufacturing. You can kind of get a feel for. We've got some really big users of our OJT program, and they are growing jobs. So I think they're in good. I think they're all solid applications. This one I'm particularly happy with is a very small family-owned business out in Arkport. It's taken us many, many visits to them to convince them to join us, but we finally did. Customized trainings, we continue to get a lot of good customized and a lot of variety in our customized training front. Everything from serves, Autodesks, you can see the company's names and what they're doing. This one here, don't be scared of this one right here, because you'll see it reappears down here. They planned it for one time period, and with COVID and everything else, they canceled that contract, but then they came back and we refired it up again. So we're in good shape there. But this gives you an idea of the companies that we're interfacing with. I do find it particularly, I like to see, and I know this sounds crazy maybe, but I like to see these smaller value customized trainings, because if a company is willing to come to us for support for $80 or $300, you know, that tells me that our overall program is not too cumbersome. Because if you're, I mean, if there was a lot of bureaucracy and whatnot involved in it, they wouldn't waste their time coming for $300 or $100 or whatever. So it may seem counterintuitive, and it's the same amount of work whether it's a $11,000 or a $300. But I like to see the smaller ones because it tells me that our system is still user friendly. So there's some of our current ones here down through as well. So as you can see, my note down here, 34,000 of those contracts not actualized were directly related to paycheck protection programs. So you can see in there, it's not a matter of they're picking the wrong candidates and we've got bad trainees in the pipeline. It's the companies choosing to use the federal monies under PPP versus ours. So I certainly can field some questions to the extent, but I think most everything you would need to kind of review is on here. But I would like to have a motion to present this to the board as a report.
I can make that motion.
I'll second it. This is Judy.
Okay, motion second. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried.
All right. So last thing, and this is actually good news. Last meeting, I talked about the OJT issue with a local manufacturer and the contract dates and all that fun stuff. And in the process of reviewing and making sure we had all our I's dotted and our T's crossed, what we found was that they had, in each of the cases that were problematic, they had accomplished enough of their training program to meet the match requirements under the OJT under the original time frame, and therefore we didn't need the extensions to begin with because they'd already matched it. So administratively, from a contract position internally, we did not need to cancel them, and we've got a full train of calculations and recalculations proving that. So I feel that we are 99.999% secure from any type of DOL issue or concern on this front. So we did not need to get the money back. It did require a little extra staff time to triple, double dog check and make sure that there was matching dollars and backup and payrolls and stuff for the time period, and we're good. That's all I've got.
Okay. Great, thank you. Anything else, Dan?
Nope. I will be gone next week. I didn't realize that I'm actually taking vacation next week.
Good for you.
Well, yeah, I hope so. Judy, the problem is that we already were struggling with quorum for O&O, and with me not being here, we probably should just cancel it. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but.
All right, I'm good. I think that's a good idea. I need you to be there. So, and if we were already struggling, we'll just push it to the next one.
Okay.
How does that change up our? Does it change up our meeting our deadline for getting the RFP done?
Yeah, we're gonna need to schedule. I'm gonna, if it's okay with you, maybe I'll have Mel see if we can reschedule it for the following week, just for the RFP purposes.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay. Sounds good. Any other business from board members or staff? If not, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. That's a quick meeting.
Yeah, well done.
Yep.
All right.
All right. Thanks,
All in
everybody. Oh, we didn't do all in favor.
Oh, yeah, all in favor. Aye. Or
Aye.
else your meeting is going to go on indefinitely, Dan. All right. Carries. Everyone, thank you.
Thank you. Have a great
Take
day.
care.
Bye.
Happy Easter, everyone.
You as well.